welcome. Happy Saturday, Vet Teams Living Well community. My name is Melissa Allen. I am one of your group admins, and I am so excited today to sit down with Melissa Mauldin, who is going to introduce herself in a moment. But really funny, just how life happens sometimes, because originally her and I were connected through a mutual friend. So shout out Kim Bissing for a Poses, Paws, and Prosecco gentle yoga event that I was hosting at Kim's dog training facility Beyond the Leash. And she was like, hey, you and my friend Melissa would probably get along well. And so here we are. And Melissa, it is so great to have you. I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself to our group for those who might not know you yet.
Awesome. Thanks. Hi, Melissa. It's great to be here today, and thank you for having me. So for those that don't know me, my name is Melissa. I have been in the veterinary profession for about 20 years. And man, that makes me feel really old, but here's where we are. It's almost 20 years. And I've done a variety of roles in the practice. I worked in practice for a large part of that time as a receptionist, and then I was a practice manager, and then I moved into regional operations roles, and then HR leader roles, and most recently finished my master's degree in leadership and organizational development and executive coaching, and earned an executive coaching certification from the ICF. So very excited, which is the International Coaching Federation, which is kind of like the governing, there isn't a governing body, but close to the governing body for coaches. So
yes, I love that so much. And thank you for clarifying that too, because I think that's something that a lot of people aren't really familiar with, that's starting to grow and expand. And since, I'm a certified health and well-being coach, that's like a different subsegment of coaching. Like it's a very dynamic industry right now that's constantly evolving. Yeah. So it's really cool to see you kind of taking all of your experience within the veterinary world and bringing it into your role now, because you just left your job, right? And you're out on your own now.
That is right. Yeah, I'm out on my own, and ready to jump into coaching full time. And my just since you mentioned it, there's a lot going on in the coaching world. It's a very blossoming industry right now. And so what I had to do to get my coaching certification is I went through a year-long training program, completed, 170 hours of classroom time, plus I had to work with a mentor coach, had to get over 100 hours of coaching, take an exam, and then also submit oral, actual recordings of coaching sessions and get them approved by sponsors. So it's pretty rigorous, and it was very exciting to be able to do that. So
that's awesome. Well, I can imagine, as you've kind of started to make this life transition, that our topic of conversation today is very relevant to some of the things that you may have experienced in the past, are experiencing right now. So can you tell us a little bit more about what negative self-talk is in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So self-talk is normal. We all have it. We all have this. It's essentially this internal dialogue that we have with ourselves that is a culmination of our beliefs and thought processes that we've accumulated over the years. I mean, since we were children, we have learned these beliefs and thoughts about ourselves, whether it's from what our friends told us, from what our parents told us, from what we witnessed, what experiences that we had. And so it's all something that's been built up over the years. So we all have this self-talk. Negative self-talk are those bad things we say about ourselves. I mean, it's what negative means. So I mean, some ways that people utilize negative self-talk is they may be dismissive of their strengths. Somebody gives them a compliment and they say, it was nothing. No, everybody can do that. It's not that big of a deal. That is a form of negative self-talk. We need to learn to accept a compliment for what it is. If we're good at something, we're good at it. You don't need to dismiss it or justify it. Making everything seem like everything's always going to be a big deal. Everything's always going to be the worst. Always expecting the worst can be a form of negative self-talk. Polarizing, there's only good or bad. I can't be just okay at something. I am either the best or I suck at it.
Right.
That's a form of negative self-talk. Overgeneralization, like using words like always and never, like I never get this right. I'm always wrong. I always screw this up. I always make this error. I can't believe that I never can get this right. And then just over magnification, like focusing only on the negative. So like there's this negative thought, and I can't see the positive. I can only see the negatives.
I don't know about our audience watching, but I was feeling personally attacked by some of those examples because I know I've experienced that on so many different levels. And so I love that you're, kind of bringing this awareness to the veterinary industry as well, because it has an impact on all different kinds of aspects of our job performance, of our confidence, and things like that, which all play an integral role in your, I guess just well-being in general, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to jump into some of the questions that we have. And the first one, because now that we know what negative self-talk is, and I'm sure that there were some people like checking the boxes like I was, as you were kind of listing off those different categories and examples. But what are some of the ways that negative self-talk can affect veterinary professionals, whether it's in their personal or professional lives?
Yeah, absolutely. In general, it can impact us personally in ways just not feeling confident, not feeling good about ourselves, not willing to take chances, but also at work, it's kind of, exemplified there at work as well. So, some of the ways it can affect veterinary professionals specifically is we may be afraid to try new things. We may be scared that, well, I've only ever done it this way. I don't know that I'll be able to pick up on something different. Or, I'll go ahead and use myself as an example here. Again, almost 20 years in the veterinary profession, I cannot restrain a cat. And I worked at a feline only practice for a while. And the running joke was Melissa can hold the feet for the ultrasound, but that was about it. That was all I was allowed to do. You're not, or unless it was the cat that like just laid there, which there's not a whole lot of those, but
right.
There are some though. And my self-limiting belief there was, I just can't do this. I can't be a tech. I don't have that skill set. I can't do it. So I never got out of that. I never learned to do anything as a veterinary, technician assistant. And I'm in Florida, and so you don't have to be licensed to be a technician. So our vet assistants do a little bit more than they might in other states, but I could not do any of that. And it was a self-limiting belief. Maybe I could have had I tried, but I did not. But it might also help make people be afraid to try for new positions. Maybe they, a CSR wants to transition into a vet assistant role, or someone wants to apply for a manager or supervisor role. And they may be saying to themselves that negative self-talk, oh, but I'm not very good with people, so maybe I shouldn't be a supervisor, or I'm not very good at this. I'm not the best technician, or so I don't think I can move up to a new role. So that's one way it can be limiting. It can limit us in that manner, just not willing to try new things or try new positions. It can also limit us financially, because we might say, I'm afraid to ask for a raise. I feel like I should be making more money, but there's no way they'll pay me that. I haven't been doing this long enough. I don't contribute enough to the practice. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but take an honest look at that and don't use it as a automatic self-limiting belief that you can't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like it can, really take a hit on your confidence by, kind of instilling those self-limiting beliefs. But not only that, holding yourself back from opportunities to either grow in the profession or ask for the raise, which all of those things can impact your well-being of mind, body, and soul. So Yeah, definitely sounds like it's something for us to be aware of. And we actually have Rebecca Rose in the chat. Shout out, Rebecca.
Yay, Rebecca.
And she dropped a comment that said, it's a conscious, loving, to be aware and switch that conversation. How can a person catch themselves and speak in that more loving way? And she was giving an example of waking up and be like, "Damn, Rebecca, you look good today, girl." I love that.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the big keys of, self-limiting or these, negative self-talks. You got to be aware of it, aware of what you're doing. And that might take some deep self-awareness, journaling, or whatever it is that you need to do to bring that awareness and saying, okay, how can I look at this differently? And maybe it is that self-affirmation that you wake up every day and say, today I look great. Or, I used to have a poster that said, I did not wake up today to be mediocre. And that for me, that helped me go out every day with intention of I woke up today and today needs to be something special. And then one of my favorites, if we have any Peloton fans out there, one of my favorites is Jess Sims. I love my Jess Sims. And one of the things that she says a lot in classes, you don't get to, you don't have to, you get to. And I think that's really key too, is remembering that I don't have to do this. I get to do this. There are other people that wish they could be in my place right now, and I get to do this.
Yeah. So really being able to kind of be more optimistic, but the first step is being able to find that awareness that you're even engaging in that negative self-talk in the first place. So that way you'll be able to, disrupt that negative thought spiral that we can oftentimes get caught in.
Yeah.
And I think that plays in nicely to the next question that we have too, where I know that dark humor and self-deprecating humor can typically be in good fun, and it might be a way that sometimes we try to cope. But what are some of the ways that those words can ultimately end up hurting us in the long run?
Yeah, so self-deprecation, and I engage in that too some, and I'm sure everybody does. And it's, I think when done in a kind and compassionate way, it's just a way to acknowledge that we're human and we're imperfect beings, which is 100% accurate. And that is totally fine. And it's just a way to acknowledge you're not perfect and move on with the day. Where it becomes dangerous is when people start internalizing that and believing it. And they start believing that they cannot move forward because of that behavior. So, they start believing the punchline, essentially. They instead of using it as a joke to create a little bit of levity in a situation where they don't feel super comfortable, they're like, oh no, I believe this. I am internally believing this. And then it's starting to impact your self-confidence and the way you think. So if you're looking around the room, if you make the joke and no one laughs and everyone's looking at you like with a side eye, like, oh, you've gone too far, you might want to look around and say, or take a deep look at yourself and say, maybe I need to address this. Maybe this has gone beyond, I have a slight flaw and I want to just be comfortable with it, to, wow, I'm actually making fun of myself, which is not the point.
Yeah. So it's not going to be engaging or buying into those thoughts or even saying out loud, oh my God, I'm such an idiot when you mess up, but it's more about like, oops, whoa, I kind of messed up this time. Sorry about that, guys. Right. So would that kind of be an example of how that's the difference between that self-deprecation and acknowledging in a compassionate way, like, oh, I'm human, I messed up.
Yeah. Like, oh man, yeah, I've screwed that one up again, is, mess that up. I guess, try better next time is very different than, wow, I guess I'm such an idiot and I'll never get this one down. And then everyone's like, oh, that's awkward.
Yeah. And we had Leanne hop in too. And this kind of goes right in with one of the other questions that we had. And she asked, can you enlist a trusted colleague to assist in pointing out or signaling to help catch us when we're diminishing ourselves or using negative self-talk? I think this is a golden question too, because sometimes it's easier for other people to catch it than ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Because if it's something that we've been doing for a long time and it's become a habit, then we're not aware of it. It's like people that crack their knuckles or, twirl their hair, things like that. They're not even aware they're doing it. So you may be doing it subconsciously and not aware of it. So enlisting a partner like that you can trust is a great way to bring that awareness. And if you have the psychological safety on your team to do that for each other, that is a wonderful thing. If the team is not in that place, is there one trusted person on your team or outside of work? Is there somebody outside of work that you can say, here's some of the negative thoughts I've been having lately. Help me flip these around. Or have you noticed me saying any negative thoughts lately about myself? That can be a great way to, accountability is key in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be my plug to say, if y'all are really struggling with this, find yourself a therapist or a coach that can help you work through that and really take a deep dive into where some of these stories developed from and ways that you can start kind of overcoming that too. So I'll get off my soapbox because I could always go on a tangent when it comes to finding a coach or therapist that works for you. So when it comes to, kind of enlisting people to help out, it sounds like there's a little bit of a fine line to walk there too, because you also don't want to feel like you're calling someone out in the environment, right? So what are some of the ways that leaders and even colleagues can effectively go about creating more of that supportive clinic environment where either everyone's kind of on board to help each other break that habit of negative self-talk, or what could that look like within a team setting?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where the HR person comes into play. It all goes back to hiring. What are you looking for in your hiring? What are you looking for in the teammates that you bring in? I think the number one key, though, for leaders is to acknowledge you cannot fix people. You are not a therapist.
Yes.
And if they do not want to change, you cannot change them. And if they have past deep-seated trauma that they have to work through to get through this, you cannot fix that. So, and you need to own that and acknowledge it and be okay with it. And I do find sometimes working with managers, they feel like they can fix people. And you can't fix people that don't want to be fixed. So,
such a good point.
That's a first place to start, and so that kind of plays into those energy vampires. If anybody's familiar with John Gordon, I have his book here, actually, The Power of the Positive Team.
Oh my gosh. So funny because Rebecca Rose just asked, can you recommend a book? So there's one.
There you go. John Gordon has great books on positive mindset. And, I do want to clarify too, we have to be careful about, I know we're talking a lot about positive, and positive is good, but we don't want to have that positive toxicity where it's just like, everything's okay, everything's positive. No, it's not. And sometimes things go wrong and it's okay to be upset and it's okay to be realistic. But that positivity is just, that we are looking for the bright side of things. We're going more towards we're not automatically going to the negative. So, Power Positive Team is really great for that. John Gordon, he's got the Coffee Bean book, and he's got a bunch of books that are all about positive energy. And so I would definitely recommend a lot of his books if you're looking for ways to kind of bring some positivity into your team. And you can even buy team on his website. There's resources for activity guides to help you implement some of the stuff from the books with your team. So,
I love that.
Yeah, it's a great resource. But as far as what leaders can do is, first of all, recognize you can't fix everybody. Second, weed out your energy vampires. So if you have people that are just negative, and nothing makes them happy, maybe this isn't the place for them,
Right.
Maybe they just don't have that positive mindset and it's not working. When you're hiring, you want to look for people, ask some questions about, that try to lead into, does this person have a growth mindset? And do they show compassion? Because that's really what positive self-talk comes back to, is do we have a growth mindset and do we have self-compassion? So, I like to ask questions like, tell me about a time when you made a mistake at work or that negatively impacted a team member or a patient. And then, okay, what did you do about it? How did you overcome it? How did you move on from that mistake? Because it's not just what do we do to fix the mistake, but how did we move on from it too? Because we can't keep beating ourselves up over a single mistake. So how did we choose to move on? So I think that can help us on our bringing the right people in with that right mindset already, which always makes it easier.
Yeah.
But then having that culture of trust and accountability, that psychological safety where people feel comfortable talking to each other and calling each other out. And it becomes part of the team where everyone feels safe. They know they can make a mistake and they're not going to get in trouble. And there might be consequences, but they're not in trouble. And there's a difference there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, growth mindset is the positive antithesis of a fixed mindset, right? And fixed mindset is where we would engage in a lot of the negative self-talk, believing that our intelligence level and skill level are, fixed, and that's what we're born with, and that's all we get. Whereas growth is being able to really look at it in terms of learning from those mistakes, like you were sharing, and having that willingness to fail because that means you're trying, right?
Yeah, we're trying and we're learning. Everything is a learning opportunity. What did I learn from this experience?
Yes. So you shared some wonderful resources for leaders and kind of, building teams that really support this. But what are some of your favorite resources or techniques for managing self-talk on more of that individual basis?
Yeah. So the one thing that I mentioned earlier, the journaling, just calling out that when you have something, when you say something to yourself, ask, is this kind? And if it's not kind and it's not helpful, then don't say it. Like, don't say it to others and don't say it to yourself. What can you say instead? And that might be the thing I put in my journal. And then I might see at the end of the week, where do most of my negative thoughts go? Are they on one or two themes? And if they are, then I might say, okay, how can I flip that script on that? What can I say differently to change how I look at that? Look at this situation, look at this approach. Because like I said, awareness is the key. If you don't know you're doing it, you're not aware, you're not going to fix it. So you got to have the awareness, and journaling can help a lot with that. And then I also like to say, would I say this to a friend? If my friend came to me and said, oh my God, I look so fat in this dress, what would I say to them? If they said, I'm so stupid, I don't know why I can't get this. What would you say to your friend? Would you say, oh yeah, you're right, you are stupid, and I don't know why you can't get that? No, you would not. You would say, okay, well, what's the problem? Like, where do you feel like you're getting stuck? What can I do to help you move through that? And you want to do those same things to yourself. You want to be kind and have compassion to yourself.
Love that.
And then, as you mentioned earlier, coaching. Obviously I'm a coach, and I am a big proponent of that. But when I was going through my coaching training, and that we would have to coach each other, do our buddy coaching with our classmates. And a lot of what I brought to class was mindset related. It was, how can I reframe this situation? Here's the situation I'm in. I don't want to change the situation, but I need to reframe my mindset around what is happening right now. And so, they would ask questions to me about, well, how could you think about this differently? Or what else could that person have meant? When I'm like frustrated with, I can't believe this person said this to me. There was, well, what do you think they might have meant? Or why do you think you can't do this right now? What do you think is preventing you from your next step? So they would ask me a lot of questions, and the coaching was great. And then also, as we've said, therapy, if it's deep seated and it's based on past trauma and you can't move past it, that means you need therapy. But, it goes beyond coaching into therapy. Coaching is more about taking where we're at now and getting to a point in the future. But if there's things that have happened in the past that are preventing you from moving forward, you've got to go to therapy to move beyond that, or you're going to have a really difficult time.
Yeah. And this is where I'll do my normal plug and say, find someone you feel comfortable with, y'all. It doesn't matter what sort of therapeutic approach or modality someone takes. If you don't feel comfortable and safe with that person that you're going through a very intimate process with, you're not going to get those benefits. So definitely find someone that you feel you can trust, that you feel comfortable and safe with, and shop around for a therapist if you need to. I know it's annoying, but hopefully once you find someone, you'll be good to go. All right, we had one last question come in, and I know for me, this one, I'm going to benefit from this question, but how do you get comfortable in giving and receiving feedback?
Yeah, that is hard because it feels very personal. It feels like this person, because I did this wrong, this person is attacking me. I am wrong. I am bad because this went wrong. I am bad. But I want you to remember that you are not bad. You are not the mistake you made. You are not the error. You are not the behavior that is wrong. And that's something, I used to be like that. Like I used to think, oh my God, I was so tied into my job was tied into my worth. And if I was failing at my job, I was failing as a human being. That's how I felt. Parenting changed that a little bit for me because I feel like I'm failing every day as a
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
And you can't feel that way. You're not failing. Right. It's just something went wrong, but that doesn't mean you are wrong. Exactly. And I think we just have to remember that. And when we do that, then we take the feedback less personally. We have to remember we are not our job. Our job is part of us, but it is not all of us. And I love to work as much as the next person. I'm very, ambitious and like to get out and do things. But I had to learn at some point, I am not my job. It is a piece of me and it's an important piece of me that I value, but there are other things about me that are important too. And that makes the feedback a lot easier to handle. Right. Because I can recognize, and also I take the feedback. You want to look at the giver who's giving the feedback. In what context is the feedback being given? Am I getting this feedback from multiple people or just one person? So we can look at it in all these different ways because just because someone gives a piece of feedback does not necessarily mean it's true too.
Sure.
So,
yes.
But I always like to self-reflect and say, that was interesting feedback. I wonder where that perception could have come from. Let me look at that and think about that. So for me to kind of depersonalize it a little bit and separate it from, this is a behavior that maybe was not well received. Okay, let me look and see how I can do that differently, but that does not mean I am a bad person. And I think kind of the same goes true for giving feedback. The receiver needs to be in a place to hear the feedback. So in some situations, it might be helpful to say, would you mind if I give you some feedback on the situation I just witnessed? And if they say yes, and say, okay, great, here's what I'd like to share with you. It's just what I acknowledge, what I witnessed. And just thought I would share that with you. If it's someone you're not comfortable, like don't know well, or the receiver says, no, I don't want your feedback. That's up. You know what I mean? Because it's, I do so much.
Yes, absolutely. And something I heard you touch on when you were talking about the receiving feedback piece is really allowing yourself to take an approach of curiosity with the feedback versus being all judgy towards yourself and saying like, oh my gosh, and trying to reinforce those negative self-thoughts, right? Yeah. So really, just being able to take that step back and distance yourself from it. So that depersonalization, I thought that was wonderful.
Always from a place of curiosity.
Yes. I love that so much. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing this part of your Saturday with us. As we're kind of starting to wrap up, I know that you're delving into this new venture, but besides in the group here, is there anywhere in particular that would be good for our audience to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, and it's just linkedin.com, Melissa Mauldin.
Okay. I can share the links in the chat too, so that way people can go back and look for the links. Yeah.
I'm working on my website and all that stuff. So that's still under development. But for now, LinkedIn's a great place to connect with me. Over the next few months, I'll be sharing a lot more information, and I'm always open to a chat. I mean, somebody reached out to me earlier this week and was like, hey, I just wanted to chat for a little bit. And I just hopped on a call and chatted with them for like an hour. Like, I'll do that. It's totally fine. I don't mind.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We know that your time is valuable, so we appreciate you sharing it with us here in Vet Teams Living Well. And that's going to wrap us up for Coffee with the Coach. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we'll just continue to see you in the group, Melissa.
All right. Sounds great.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care, stay healthy, and be well. We'll see you next time.